Hi, it's Steve Hargadon, and we're in day 4, the long day 4 of the Global Education Conference. This is our 5th annual event, over 250 sessions, 30 keynotes, one of whom is Alaine Newland. Alaine, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Lovely to have you here. Would you mind turning your microphone off just for a second while I go through the intro slides? I get a slight feedback there. We'll have you turn it back on when you begin. So many wonderful organizations participating this year in supporting the conference, helping to make it free for educators around the world. Our thanks especially to IRN USA and the Global Campaign for Education and these other fine organizations. They are much appreciated. Those of you who are live in the room will probably recognize this slide. Click to the left of the slide on the star icon and click on the map. You can indicate in the chat where you're participating from, the time, temperature, anything else you want us to know. Freezing Chicago, Ontario, Canada, somebody in India or Pakistan, Cape Town again. Ryan, glad you're here. Mexico. Keep those notes coming and let us know. I'm going to give Alaine as much time as I can here. Just a second. So Alaine Newland is at IDEO. They are a design firm that focuses on human-centered design. She's going to give her own introduction. I'm going to turn it over to you, Alaine.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate you having me here. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my session on human-centered design in the classroom. My name's Alaine, and I work at IDEO. And just a brief introduction, I started my career in the nonprofit world. I was fascinated by the human connection, and I spent the past 10 years working to connect global communities, from the Auckland War Memorial Museum, where I sought to reactivate locals around live exhibits, to Boston Cares, where I worked with volunteer engagement, to San Francisco, where I connected urban cyclists through shared resources and events. Over the years, I realized that these communities are better engaged when they are connected through visuals, but nonprofit resources often couldn't provide this design support. So I went back to school to study graphic design. And I found my way to IDEO when I heard about Open IDEO, an online space where communities connect around pressing global issues through the power of design. It was like I had found the sweet spot in the Venn diagram of my career. So quickly, just to go over today's agenda, I will be talking to you about human-centered design, which is a methodology used to create innovative solutions based on empathy for real user needs. I'll be sharing some examples of how IDEO has applied this design thinking to real-world solutions, particularly in the education space. And I'll share some tips on how you might use these methods in the classroom. I'll also tell you a bit more about Open IDEO, including a walkthrough of our process and how you can begin to leverage this space as educators. So, moving on. I'm going to tell you a little story. Imagine for a second that you are on your back staring up at the ceiling. All you see are miles of ceiling tiles as you're pushed from one anonymous room to another. Periodically, faces poke in and out of view, but you never really understand what they're saying. You're confused, you're scared, you're in pain, and this lasts for hours on end as you stare up at the ceiling. And you want more than anything just to go home. This is the experience captured by an IDEO designer when he strapped on a head-mounted camera, entered the emergency room, and really decided to explore what the patient experience was like. When IDEO was tasked by a hospital to redesign the emergency room experience, the first thing they did was put themselves in the shoes of the patient. By replicating their experience, capturing it in such a visual way, next steps for a redesign actually became pretty clear. At first, nurses and administration did not want to engage in this project. They said the process worked just fine. Let's just keep doing it how we're doing it. But when patient interviews told another story, along with this very tangible, visceral visual of the video, IDEO knew that there was a lot of work to do. And as IDEO's Chief Creative Officer, Paul Bennett, put it, it was a blinding glimpse of the bleeding obvious. So this story illuminates the process of human-centered design. HCD is a process that begins with deep empathy for a user's needs. From the check-in process to a shift in tone and communication, IDEO designers were able to reimagine the ER experience so that people didn't feel like objects that were to be positioned and moved around a space. They were actually treated like humans. So how did IDEO designers engage in human-centered design in this case specifically? I'm going to break it down to help explain human-centered design in context. They took the time to understand and observe the environment and user experience from every angle. And they put the patient's needs at the center of their research and implementation. They gathered dynamic perspectives from nurses who were against the project to long-term patients to people who were just hurried in and out. They gathered compelling visuals to create clarity, and they considered the outcomes and outputs as a complete system. So were the changes feasible from a technical perspective? Were they viable from a business perspective? And of course, were they desirable from a human perspective? I'm going to show you a chart of the human-centered design process, which is rooted in process as much as outcome. The reason it's called human-centered is because it starts with the people we're designing for. Human-centered design can be broken down into 4 phases. If you look at this chart, you'll see a series of steps that we take as we explore HCD. These 4 phases I like to explain as inspiration, interpretation, ideation, and implementation. So let me break it down for you. At the beginning of the process, inspiration, we start by collecting observations and stories. We speak to all types of stakeholders and establish a base knowledge for the current state. Designing meaningful solutions always begins with empathy, as I've said. And then as we shift into interpretation, you'll see the arc begins to rise into the abstract. You'll see themes emerging from the research. These lead to opportunity areas that should be further explored and invested in. And we translate what we're hearing in our research to develop a framework for our solutions. This is when we shift back from abstract interpretation to concrete thinking as we move into ideation. We start creating potential solutions to the problem, constantly returning back to the user for feedback as we iterate and as we experiment. Prototypes are very important to test assumptions and to gather insights, and it's a quick and easy way to access your user needs. Finally, as we move through the arc into implementation, we see the idea come to life in the real world. But even then, the work is not done as we continue to evaluate impact and make adjustments. The desired outcome is always to see opportunities become innovation, to transform insights into action, and implement new solutions with impact, hopefully faster and hopefully more effectively. Now that we understand a bit more about human-centered design, let's take a look at a few more examples of it in action. IDEO is a design and innovation firm with offices around the globe. Our methodologies are rooted in human-centered design, and we've applied this thinking to everything from products and services to entire social systems. We like to envision new companies and brands, and we design the products, services, spaces, and interactive experiences to bring them to life. So in the recent years, IDEO has spent a lot of time thinking about education. As Einstein said, we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. IDEO's design for learning efforts are all about the constant creation of knowledge and empowering individuals to participate, communicate, and innovate. I'm going to just give you 2 quick examples. The first is a cafeteria that was a new food system that was commissioned by San Francisco's Unified School District. They were struggling to engage students in healthy eating on campus. Students were waiting in long lines, rushing to finish, eating in makeshift lunchrooms. Many kids actually opted out and headed off campus with friends, or they chose not to eat at all. The student nutrition services were running at a $2 million deficit, and after months of observing student behavior, IDEO discovered that the food wasn't actually the problem, but rather how it was being served. So they decided to redesign the lunch experience. What made this approach especially unique was that the student voices themselves led the ultimate solution development. And in September of last year, the San Francisco Board of Education unanimously cleared the path for the new student-centered school lunch. Another example, despite an emerging middle class and rapidly expanding economy, the education system in Peru ranks 65th out of 65 countries. Innova Schools approached IDEO in order to help design a world-class, affordable public school education. Spending months gathering insights and conducting experiments on the ground, IDEO developed the curriculum, teaching strategies, buildings, operational plans, and underlying financial model to run the network of schools. The system is rooted in developing self-directed learners and providing innovative support for teachers. And for just $130 a month, underprivileged youth in Peru are receiving an education that is scoring 3 times the national average in math and 2 times the national average in communication. Reimagining education for a new generation requires a global effort, and it can start in the classroom. The Design for Learning team gathered some insights into areas that educators can use to apply to create the schools of tomorrow. And so I'd like to just walk you through 8 tips for innovation in the classroom. Pull, don't push. Let's create an environment that translates questions into understanding by empowering students to seek their own answers. Real learning happens when teachers create a space for curiosity and students are actively called upon to reconcile the questions they're facing. Create from relevance. By engaging students in ways that feel relevant to them, you can engage them in a much deeper way. Activate them by allowing students to experience what you're teaching from a first-hand perspective, and then engage in discussions around their insights and learning. For instance, in one classroom, students were given various shaped tools and plastic eggs to emulate a bird breaking into a nest. They were asked to explore what shapes work best for this process, and in doing so, they discovered the solutions firsthand. Reimagining skills. Let's stop calling skills like creativity, collaboration, communication, and empathy soft skills. These are core capabilities that are at the heart to solving complex global issues. By reimagining these skills and nurturing them in students, we can grow a thoughtful, creative future generation that is capable of tackling the problems in their future world. Allow for innovation. Let's evolve past the one-size-fits-all mentality. Kids all learn differently, and we should not try to force a square peg into a round hole. Equality does not mean sameness, and when students are all coming from different backgrounds, starting points, and skill sets, adaptability in curriculum is the best way to activate an entire classroom. What might it look like to allow students to jump into the curriculum at different points, or perhaps choose from a variety of avenues in order to learn about a particular topic? Let teachers be the designers. When educators are actively engaged in the learning process, they'll be inspired to produce inspiring results. Let's shift from prescriptive rules to permissive guidance. And though this might result in a chaotic space at first, it will lead to higher engagement from both sides of the classroom. Let's build a learning community. Learning is not a solo experience. Active learning happens when students absorb and engage with their entire community. From parents, teachers, and administrators, building partnerships in learning will benefit more than just the child. It will result in new resources, knowledge, and a more engaged community. Might you invite parents into the classroom to work on a project together, or encourage students to present projects outside of the school? How might local businesses get involved in the learning process? Be an anthropologist, not an archaeologist. Archaeologists seek to understand the past by investigating what once was. Anthropologists seek to understand the values, needs, and desires of people which is a human-centered effort, by the way. If you want people to design new solutions for the future, you have to understand their needs. So what if we invite students to build empathy for the end user through interviews, brainstorming sessions, or prototyping in the real world? And my last tip for you is to incubate the future. Let's inspire the generation of today to solve for the problems of tomorrow. If we activate students to see their role in the world, we can teach ambition, responsibility, and future skills to manage solutions around urgent issues of their future. What might it look like to invite students to brainstorm solutions on topics such as global warming, transportation, and waste management? How might you excite them to get involved in issues that currently matter to them or will soon matter to them? So how might you begin applying human-centered design right away? What goals do you have for your future classroom and the future generation of learners? Here are just a couple ideas, thinking about how you might use the classroom space in a new way, re-envisioning your curriculum to inspire new behaviors, instilling creative confidence through activities, designing experiences that support learning, and building a generation of design thinkers. IDEO has been applying these design methodologies for years, and it worked so well that the natural next step was to equip more people with the knowledge and resources to begin tackling complex social issues. But some problems are too big and require more than just a team of designers working in a project space to solve. So 4 years ago, a few IDEO designers asked themselves, if we can create this much impact with only 500 designers, what might it look like if we blew the walls off the design process and activated 500,000 global thinkers to join us for impact? And thus, Open IDEO was born. Open IDEO is a place where people design better together for social good. It's all about collaborative innovation focused on creating real-world impact around some pretty big challenges facing our world today. Over the past few years, we've tackled 27 challenges on topics ranging from creative confidence to e-waste, to workplace wellness, to youth employment, to renewable energy. Our community of 75,000 is a dynamic mix of entrepreneurs, designers, professionals, and content experts. And more recently, we've seen a huge surge in student and university participation. Rooted in design thinking, Open IDEO strives to design with, not for, always putting the user at the center of the process. Open IDEO is a space where people collaborate rather than compete. We believe in the power of iteration to discover and uncover the best solutions, and we believe that these conversations can't just happen online. In-person matters too. Our meetups are happening all over the world, from Barcelona to Mumbai, from San Francisco to New York, from Sydney to Nairobi, and lately universities have been joining the action with student groups cropping up all over the world to join us in this exciting global conversation. So let's dive into how a challenge works on Open IDEO. Every challenge starts with a big question, a call to action around a social issue to tackle. It's framed as a how might we question, as this is an inclusive and engaging way to invite people in. We then invite our community to dive into the topic with a process that's built upon human-centered design. You may notice how all challenges begin in the inspiration phase by gathering research, working through the ideation process, with implementation and impact as the ultimate outcome. Our challenge process was built to replicate the human-centered design process. During research, we define the problem and gather inspiration. Discovery builds a solid foundation for future explorations, and by beginning with a baseline understanding of the user's needs, we can open up new opportunities for innovative solutions. During this phase, we highly encourage people to conduct interviews, share their personal stories, and explore analogous scenarios to establish a dynamic perspective on the topic beyond their own understanding. During the ideas phase, the community begins to contribute potential solutions to the challenge topic. We encourage people to post their contributions early and often in order to leverage the power of the community's feedback and iteration. During this phase, we encourage people to run brainstorms and always consider the user as they build out potential ideas. During refinement, we encourage lots of experimentation to test assumptions and explore potential for implementation. We love to see ideas brought to life through quick experiments. After all, prototypes are a fantastic way to gather feedback and learning. As people continue to refine their ideas, we ask contributors to consider what success looks like and what next steps might be necessary to bring the idea to life. Every challenge is slightly different when it comes to selecting top ideas, and while many ideas on the platform have merit, we hope to see the community always continue to work on their thinking. We usually select just a few ideas to highlight for potential sponsor support. On Open IDEO, we believe that impact is ongoing. We encourage the community to evaluate their learning, share them back for future progress, and lately we've been asking people to share targeted asks for support in order to see their ideas into the real world. At Open IDEO, we know that social and market impact come in many different shapes and sizes, from behavior change to mindset change to affecting tangible change in the community. After almost 4 years and over 27 challenges with participants from more than 170 countries, we've seen an astounding range of ideas and outcomes. From a 16-year-old who found a partnering NGO in the UK on the platform to pilot his idea for a curriculum that teaches design thinking, to a social business that provides affordable, quality, and expedient healthcare services to low-income communities in Colombia, to an initiative in New York that allows small businesses to pop up temporarily around the city. We love to see ideas from our challenges continue on to create real change in the world. We have seen action on the individual, community, and institutional levels, resulting in social, environmental, and economic impact. There are many ways as educators that you can engage with the Open IDEO community, and I'm very excited to tell you all about them. At this point, we're going to turn it over to Emily Havens, who's been spearheading our efforts to activate offline engagement.
Hi all. Thanks Elaine. It's really great to be here to share a bit more about the exciting work our educator community has been involved in already using the Open IDEO platform. Really recently we've seen more and more examples of creative ways that different schools, campuses, and universities have used the Open IDEO platform and leveraged the Open IDEO community as an educational resource and a student activation tool. We wanted to take a few minutes to highlight 3 educational institutions in particular that have creatively integrated and incorporated the Open IDEO platform into their respective curriculum, classroom, and communities. The most straightforward way that we've seen Open IDEO be used as a learning tool in schools is through this direct curriculum integration. At the start of this year, actually, Davidson College, a small liberal arts college in North Carolina, piloted a curriculum that supports students in participating effectively with the online platform. It's a special elective for students who, once enrolled, become year-long design fellows. And this was particularly interesting to us because there were a few core elements that really stood out. It was the elective structure, which allowed for students to get the educational support they need and get the credit for the work that they were doing, while also getting to directly apply those learnings to their campus. It was a small cohort of students too, 5 to be exact, and they really were able to step up into a leadership role on campus. So it was integrated into the curriculum, and then they acted as these design thinking fellows and design thinking ambassadors to other classes that might not have known about design thinking. We also thought that for the professor who was leading this course, the platform was a really useful way to track progress and grade their other students. Another way, so in terms of how you can dive in with the curriculum integration, there are a series of really phenomenal resources out there for educators. I'm going to post this link in the chat box actually. It's this link to this incredible educator's toolkit, which has a plethora of resources and tips on how to apply design thinking to the classroom. Another resource that's available that our friends over at IDEO.org just created is designkit.org, and it's a free soup to nuts guide for anyone and everyone interested in participating and engaging others in the human-centered design process. Another way to engage your students in the design thinking learning is by encouraging them to start a student meetup group that participates in the Open IDEO Challenge offline. And we've really found this to be an amazing way for students to get a hands-on experience solving real-world challenges. There's one school in particular that has championed this effort and has experienced really it's a best practice experience. It's the NYU Poly Group, and they've been an Open IDEO student chapter since 2012. their whole focus is to take the learnings and take the challenge that's presented on the online platform and then come together and go through that process that Alaine explained. So they'll lead a meetup around the ideation phase, and then they'll lead a meetup around the refinement phase to really dive deeper into these challenges together. What's been really impressive with these guys is they've actually had multiple winning ideas from past challenges. In fact, as part of the Women's Safety Open Idea Challenge, a group of students from what they call themselves the Design to Green Club actually collaborated with an NGO that's based in Kathmandu, Nepal. And they ended up being selected as one of the top 4 ideas to be supported by amplify.org. This is really a great example of students making global connections on the platform, and it's a really cool way to see their ideas come to life in the real world. This is another way for anybody, any professor or student group to dive right in. We're really excited about our current challenge that just launched. It's around renewable energy. How might communities lead the rapid transition to renewable energy? It's in the research phase right now, which is really the optimal time to activate students. We found that this is especially relevant to students mainly because of their natural ability to jump in and research and because of their experience in doing that sort of thing. It's a really easy way to conduct. You can jump in, you can conduct interviews, share personal stories, and share that personal knowledge. The research phase ends in a couple of weeks, but this challenge does run through February, so there are lots of ways to get involved. And the last approach that I'm going to highlight is around campus-wide engagement. Middlebury College in Vermont has taken a particularly innovative and thoughtful campus-wide approach to incorporating Open IDEO into their community. And they've really prioritized building a learning community, which Alaine mentioned is one of these core components in reimagining education through design thinking. They have a Center for Social Entrepreneurship on their campus, so in partnership with the center, Middlebury is working with local partners and implementing organizations to research and to prototype ideas and move from awareness of an issue that exists within the challenge to actually actionable steps. We're really thinking through how they, in their local community, can be a part of the global solution. They've been really successful in getting students out into the community, even with our latest challenge around 0 to 5. They went to go and visit a parent-child center where students jumped into their community. They interviewed different parents and really experienced the shift in perspective and felt that real-world connection that they wouldn't have otherwise had they not jumped into the challenge. Right now, as we think about how communities are leading the rapid transition to renewable energy, this provides another opportunity for you and your students and your learning communities to dive into the challenge. We found that prototyping or getting out there and interviewing different organizations is a really great way to expand your knowledge and use Open IDEO as a learning tool. So I encourage you all to engage in whatever way you find the most beneficial to you, and reach out when you have any questions.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing what you've been working on. Does anyone else have, let's open it up to questions.
So if you have a question, you can put it in the chat, or you can raise your virtual hand. It's the third icon over in the participant window, and we'll give you the microphone. If you've put a question in the chat and we've missed it, do draw our attention to it. I'm looking back now. Can you see that question there, Alaine?
Yes, thank you. Looks like Ben is interested in whether we're thinking about using open badges for open IDEO participation. We use badges in a different way on the platform. We highlight individuals who are joining the challenge from an expert point of view or as advisors to the content. And, our team comes to the challenge with a knowledge of human-centered design, and then we invite experts to supplement with their knowledge on this specific topic. And so we use badges to emphasize them. In addition to empowering community members in leadership roles, and they get badges so that it's clear that they're acting from that position. So yes. Let's see, I see a little more text, sorry. Badges can help structure individualized learning paths for students. Interesting. Yeah, I love that idea of breaking down channels for learning. We have definitely thought about trying to structure the information in that way. On our platform, we use something called missions, which helps clarify themes and opportunity areas that people can ideate around. But the nice thing about badges is that it's very visual, and we definitely believe in that. Thank you for that question. I don't know if I answered it clearly. Anything else? Ah, thanks, Ben. We're happy to answer questions specifically around how you might engage your students using human-centered design, or how you might start participating with Open IDEO.
There is a little bit of conference fatigue on day 4 of 5, so if you don't get any more questions, don't worry, I'm sure they'll come.
Okay, sounds great. We can wait just a couple more minutes, and if there are any other questions, we're very happy to answer. Otherwise, how would a typical K-12 teacher get involved with Open IDEO? That's an awesome question. We've been thinking about that a lot lately, actually, because primarily our challenges appeal to university students because they're able to have more of a potential to implement their ideas. But we love having students join us in the research phase. I think that teachers could use the opportunity to teach skills around interviewing and the importance of research. So for a renewable energy challenge, you could download the interview toolkit. We have lots of worksheets around thinking about the topic, and teachers can start to plan their curriculum around this topic. So you could start by having students participate in the research phase, and then you could break away into student groups and have them brainstorm possible solutions that they could implement in their own community. We love to see photos and videos and prototypes and stories about that. Thank you for that question. I love to emphasize that. What's an easy way to get started on Open IDEO if I've never used it before? That's a great question. We recommend that you come to openideo.com. There's a tab that has a video that kind of breaks down where we came from and how things work, about the About Us and How It Works tabs. But mostly I recommend that you pick a challenge topic that interests you and dive in, starting with the brief. In the brief, we provide an overall introduction to the topic, the sponsor, and the channels that we're hoping to explore. And really all you have to do is create a profile and start contributing. It's a space where thinking grows, so you don't have to have a complete idea ready to put it online. You can literally just start a topic as if it's a conversation and let the community dive in and support it and feed it and nurture it with their feedback. Then, I'd love to talk a little bit more about great design, starting with empathy. I've said that a couple times. I actually was afraid I said it too many times, but I'm glad you liked it. So human-centered design is rooted in empathy for the end user, really taking the time to get to know their needs, their wants, their desires for the future, and building a solution around those asks. Human-centered design always focuses on the user in the end. So in having empathy with the end user, you're able to truly build a solution that works for them. Yes, I think, yeah. See if Emily has anything to add. On Open IDEO, we use empathy for everything from coming up with challenge topics that truly resonate for a community, considering the exact phrasing around how we want to activate people. So for instance, in the Renewable Energy Challenge, we call upon communities to really lead the charge. And that's because in thinking about the type of people that are truly affected by this topic, it's truly communities. So we're really interested in activating people to think about it in that framing. It's not about the politics. It's not about the businesses. It's really about how communities can lead the charge. That's just one example. We also have meetups. We learned through feedback from our own community that offline engagement is really important. Creating their own community of thinkers that they can bounce ideas off of, that they can brainstorm with, and having a sense of connection is important. So we actually started our meetup program and our university initiatives that really activate people even if they're not ready to be on the platform. And a third example is we've been doing a lot of work in developing countries, and we have attempted to apply empathy in the sense that a lot of our end users out there don't have access to reliable internet connection. So we started to think about how we could allow communities that we're designing with and for to participate in the process. And we've actually launched something called the Global Conversations Project, where we're leveraging IVR, which is a voice recognition system that allows people to actually call in with their answers and call in to hear pre-recorded submissions. And we're hoping that that's a way to involve everyone in our process. It's a great question. Thank you. Shameless plug for the I always love a shameless plug when it has to do with design thinking. Thank you for stopping by. Definitely download those toolkits. I'm hearing open-ended design, open idea curriculum, design-centered, human-centered design. Is there a significant difference between all these terms? You know, in the end, I think it comes down to a similar interest in designing for our user. When you have human-centered design, you're always putting the user at the end. When you have open innovation, you are blasting open the space to conversations from a really dynamic perspective. You're inviting everyone to join in and be a part of the solution. One thing that differentiates Open IDEO from other crowdsourcing platforms is that we are about collaboration on here, so people don't just submit an idea and ask for funding. We actually submit and ask for feedback and ask for support and ask for partnership. And so we nurture the idea from the beginning all the way to the end, and I think that's a huge part of open-ended design, of design thinking, and of just being a space where ideas can flourish. As far as open idea curriculum, I'm not quite sure what that means, but my guess is it is rooted in the idea that it's like what I was saying, where students come in many shapes and sizes, and there's not one right way to teach, and there's not one right curriculum for everyone. So having a flexibility in your structure, again, that's putting the end user at the end of your solution. Having empathy for your students. You're welcome. Thank you for your question. I appreciate it. My pleasure. I appreciate you guys tuning in. We are so excited to be activating educators, students, university groups, and everyone that we can who loves to learn in this process. Especially when it comes to having, as I said, a dynamic perspective. The generation that is moving into the future should be the people that are helping to design these solutions, because they are in that space when it all comes down to it. So anything that we can do to support this type of learning, we're very excited to do. For anyone that tuned in late, if you have questions about human-centered design or how to apply that to your classroom, or how Open IDEO is using innovation and human-centered design, you're welcome to ask your questions. Yes, so our Twitter handle is @OpenIDEO. My Twitter handle is cobalt_strides, and we're very excited to have you follow us. On Twitter, we share updates about what's happening on the platform. We share articles of interest from, posts like Fast Company and Wired on topics that are relevant to our community. And we also highlight and celebrate contributions from the platform. So that is @OpenIDEO. Maybe one or two last questions. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We will create a page on our website with links to a lot of the things that we were talking about today, and I'll share that link with the Global Education Conference so that they can distribute it as desired. So if you're interested in following up on anything I talked about, from the kits to the case studies to a more in-depth look at joining Open IDEO, we are happy to put that together for you. And I'm sure we'll get it out to you however the conference feels is appropriate.
We have lots of ways to do that. Thanks, Alaine.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. I appreciate your help. Thank you, everybody, for popping by. And feel free to send any more questions to Emily, whose email is included right here.
Is she still there? Thanks, Emily.
Yeah, she's still here.
I am, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to turn off the recording. You know the drill.